My name is Ian Ross. I am the Solicitor and Legal Advisor to Telford and Wrekin Council's Planning Committee. My initial task today is to clarify and confirm which Planning Committee members are in attendance. So if I could call out members' names alphabetically and ask each to confirm that they are present. Councillor Nigel Dugmore.
Present.
Councillor Ian Fletcher.
Present.
Councillor Janice Jones.
Present.
Councillor James Lavery. No. Councillor Raj Mehta.
Present.
Councillor Kuldip Sahota.
Present.
Councillor Peter Scott.
Present.
Councillor Charles Smith.
Present.
Councillor Chris Turley.
Present.
I can confirm that the planning meeting today is quorate. And now to assist, I'd like to clarify and confirm also which Telford and Wrekin Council officers are also in attendance today. If I could call out the names and please confirm that you're there. Barry Hume, Service Delivery Manager for Planning.
Present.
Andrew Gittins, Area Team Planning Manager.
Present.
Mark Turner, Area Team Planning Manager.
Present.
Ian Lowe, Principal Planning Officer.
Present.
Karen Denmark, Principal Planning Officer.
Present.
Gavin Onions, Tree and Woodland Officer.
Present.
Jane Clark, Democratic and Scrutiny Services Officer.
Present.
Joseph Kalgowski, Democratic and Scrutiny Services Officer.
Present.
Now I think that's it. Please, is there anyone present who I haven't alerted the public to?
Yeah, it's Jaspreet Lyle.
Oh, I apologise, Jazz. Jaspreet Lyle, Solicitor and Advisor to the Planning Committee. Are you there, Jazz? Yes, obviously.
Present.
Yes, I apologise for that, Jazz. May I now hand over to our Chair of Planning Committee, Councillor Charles Smith, to formally open the meeting and welcome everybody to the meeting today.
Well, thank you, Ian. Welcome everybody to the Telford Wrekin Planning Committee. And due to the current COVID-19 regulations, today's meeting has been held using audio conferencing and is available for the public to listen to via an audio feed on the agenda page of the website or via the Council's YouTube channels. This ensures that all those involved or interested in the planning applications can hear how the decisions are made. Only those people who have been notified prior to the meeting are able to speak and will be dialed into the meeting via the telephone for the application on which they wish to speak. Members and other participants should only speak when invited to do so. Can everybody ensure their microphones are on mute when not addressing the committee? Anyone disrupting the meeting will be muted and asked to leave from the meeting. Welcome to the meeting. Item 1 on the agenda is any apologies.
Yes, Chair, we've received apologies from Councillor Kelly Middleton, who has sent Councillor Kuldip Sahota as her sub, and we have apologies from Councillor James Lavery.
No substitute.
No substitute, Chair.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest?
Yes, Chair. Can you hear me, Chair?
Yes, I'll go to Kuldip.
Yes, I'd like to declare interest in the former Eden Complex 2019-08-06 item. 7.1 item it is.
Thank you.
And you want me to leave the meeting altogether and somebody will phone me to alert me to get back?
I think that is probably the safest way, Kuldip.
Okay.
Chair.
Yeah, Chair.
I have two declarations. TWC 2020-0347, former Duncow, and TWC 2020-0696, site of former Cheshire Cheese, as I'm a member of Great Dorey Town Council. But if there has been any discussions, I have not been present.
Thank you. Right.
Charles, yeah, I'm
Right, we've lost you.
Town Council Dolly to the act as well. So I just want to declare.
Right, we didn't get that at all.
Councillor Mehta, if you could repeat what you said earlier, because it was too difficult to hear what you were saying, if that's okay.
Oh, we've lost Councillor Mehta. The joys of new technology.
Charles, can you take me instead?
Sorry?
Can you take me? Another interest or not?
Yes, call it, carry on.
Yeah, I'm on the Dolly Town Council as well, like Chris and Raj. And this is about the Duncow Public House. But I never been involved with anything on that one. This is the first time I'm going through it. So, you know, there was no discussion ever took place there. So just like to say I'm on that Dolly Town Council as well.
Okay, thanks. Called it. Raj, are you back? Can somebody get Raj?
Chair, I can confirm he's still in this call with us. However, we're unable to hear him at present.
Oh, right.
Raj, you may, if you pop your camera down or pop your screen down, you may find that the phone signal's better with your screen off. That sometimes happens. I don't know if that will help at all.
Sorry to interrupt once again. He has now left the call, so I suspect there has been some Wi-Fi issues at his end. I can try dialing him back in, Chair.
If you will, please. We do need him. No.
Just dial it. It's still calling, Chair.
Oh.
As I understand it, if it doesn't if it doesn't answer soon, it automatically just reverts back to being not in the meeting. So as it has done now. So I've been unable to get through to him, Chair.
Is it worth, Joe, just trying to dial him in via audio so that he's actually taking part via audio, even though not on camera?
Yes, I will find his number.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Oh,
Raj, you're back.
Yes, back. Sorry, it is the internet's been playing up. I'm back.
Raj, you were giving your declaration of interest.
Okay. Yes, it's for application TWC 20200696. As I'm a member of Great Dolly Town Council and Dolly and Aqueduct Parish.
Have you taken part in any discussions?
As far as I know, no.
Thank you. Okay, no problem. Right, no more declarations of interest. Right, item 3, the minutes of the previous meeting. Are there true and correct record? And Ian, can you take the roll call? Ian Ross.
Yes, Chair. So as regards the minutes of the previous meeting, if members could in turn indicate whether they're in support of the minutes of the meeting. Oh, have we had a mover and a seconder, actually?
I'll move them as chair.
Second, Chair.
So we've had a mover and a seconder. Councillor Nigel Dugmore?
Yeah, fine. Okay.
Councillor Ian Fletcher?
Approve the minutes.
Councillor Janice Jones?
Approve the minutes.
Councillor Raj Mehta?
Wasn't there?
Yeah.
It was okay.
I wasn't at that meeting.
Yeah.
That's
I
okay.
think
Thank
Nigel
you very
thought
much.
he could answer.
Councillor Kuldip Sahota,
Yes, fine with me.
Councillor Peter Scott,
Approve, yes.
Councillor Charles Smith,
Okay with me.
Councillor Chris Turley.
Approve the minutes.
The minutes are approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 4 then is the deferred or withdrawn applications. Are there any?
No, Chair, there are none.
No deferred or withdrawn. Item 5, are any site visits planned?
No, Chair.
Thank you. Item 6 is the tree preservation order. We need to.
Yes.
There's been no objection to this, so we need to get Mr. Wallace in.
Yes, Chair. I'm just dialing him in now.
Unknown participant is now joining.
Hello, Mr. Wallace.
Hello there, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hello, Mr. Wallace. Yes, I can hear you. For the benefit of the committee and yourself, would you mind pausing the stream that I assume you're currently watching at the moment? There is a bit of a delay between the stream and the meeting happening in live. So with that out the way, I hand you over to the chair.
Hello, Mr. Wallace.
Hello,
We're
sir.
going to get Ian Ross, the councillor, to outline the report, and then you will have your 3 minutes to say, and then you can listen to what the tree officers got to say in reply. So, Ian Ross, can you present the report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is a report to inform members of the making of a provisional tree preservation order, and the stage we're at now is to seek confirmation of that provisional tree preservation order. The recommendation is in the report. Officer's recommendation is that members resolve to confirm the whole of this order. I'll explain why I've used that term in a moment, without modification. By way of background, earlier this year, the provisional tree preservation order was made, but an objection has been received, which requires officers to report the making of the tree preservation order to members, so that members make the decision on as to whether to confirm the order or not in the light of the objection and the representations of the council's woodlands officer. The details of the objection are attached, and it's good that Mr. Wallace is speaking today, and the response of the arboricultural officer, the tree and woodland officer Gavin Onions, is also attached, and he's here to talk to it again today. But just to remind members of the what they're focusing on is set out essentially in the legal comment at paragraph 8 of the report. The tree preservation order was made, and it's a local planning authority can make tree preservation orders and confirm them if it's, and then the key phrase is at the bottom of paragraph 8.1, if it's expedient in the interests of amenity to do so. So that's the phrase that follows through the whole of the considerations today. Is it expedient in the interest of amenity to confirm the order? I mean, it's quite a broad phrase, and there's a lot of relevant factors that members can take into account, but they all centre around expediency and amenity. Just to remind members there that the tree preservation order does not prevent or preclude necessary lopping or pruning, but if you are doing works to a protected tree, should the order be confirmed, you need the council's consent. So it doesn't actually stop works happening, it's just that you need to apply for consent before you can do anything on a protected tree. And that also applies to seeking consent to fell a protected tree as well. The report, the order itself relates to a group of trees in this case, and I think the papers do indicate, I think it's a group of 10 trees, and in fact it's attached to the objector's representation. You'll see the description of the trees and the map. So as I understand it, and Mr. Wallace or Gavin Onions can correct me if I'm wrong, the objection appears to focus on 2 of the trees, as opposed to the whole group. But I'm sure members would have picked that up already from reading the papers. So at that point, Chair, unless members want me to add anything more, it's probably appropriate for us to go through and hear from the objector and Gavin Onions.
Thank you, Ian. Mr. Wallace, do you want to address the committee for 3 minutes, please?
Yes, please, Chair. Thank you ever so much.
You've got 3 minutes starting now, then, and I'll tell you when you've got 1 minute left.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in, everyone, and it's really appreciate it. There's a bit of backstory to really why I objected, so you'll have to indulge me just for the first minute while I tell you a little bit about what I'd like to do with, excuse me, that area. So with the public pack released on page 15, you can see a photo there with an area highlighted. Myself and my wife moved into this property 2 years ago. What we want to do is we would like to take ownership of this area, for the reason being our son Jack, he's got a severe autism and a severe developmental delay, and we propose to turn this area into a sensory garden for him, for his therapy. That's nothing to do with this meeting now, but just to give you a bit of context and backstory, that's our plan for that area. When this tree preservation order came for our doorstep, it's apparent that the 2 tree stumps in that area, as you can see the picture on page 15, that falls in that area that we would like to take ownership of. We'd like to envelop into the portfolio of our house. So that area currently at the minute is very overrun. There's a lot of debris. It's very overgrown. It's not kept or maintained at all, really. There's a rat infestation. So the reason we went against the tree preservation order in particular is we want to take ownership of that area, and those 2 tree stumps fall in that area. And that would stop us neatening up that area, clearing it out, getting rid of that debris, and sorting it out. At the same time, the reason those 2 trees are stumps, when me and my wife took this house 2 years ago, they were ginormous, and they saturated our garden, the garden to our left, number 11, I think, and the courtyard of the block of flats.
1 minute left, Mr. Wallace.
Thank you very much. 1 minute left. So myself and my wife went through a solicitor. We spoke to Telford Council, and we spoke to the builders. And that land and those trees, as far as we were, to the best of our knowledge, weren't under any preservation order at that time. And we went through several agencies. So we made a decision to cut them down to improve the area, to allow more light. Our lawn and the neighbour's lawn was actually saturated with a mould because there was no natural light getting through. So with those 2 trees being cut down, it has made the whole area around that area much more brighter, much more better. But that's obviously the reason I've got 10 seconds left. The proposal is I would respectfully ask that you do not incorporate the first 2 trees into the tree preservation order. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace. Gavin Onions, do you want to reply to that? Gavin?
Thank you, Chair. I'm just turning off mute. Yes, as Mr. Wallace alluded to, the trees were large. They were 9 and 8 metres in 2014, which is the last record we have. The trees were retained through the planning process via the 2014 and 2015 application for Highfield House, which used to be a council building. All of the trees in this area also appear on the 1882 map of the area. The yew trees, they have been effectively pollard stroke coppiced at about 1 metre in height, and since they have been cut down, they have started to regenerate back. And obviously, given another 100 years, they would be what they once were prior to them being coppiced at that size. So they are Britain's oldest growing tree, and obviously when this was coming through from a planning application, these trees were never deemed to be under any sort of threat. I was actually contacted by the management committee from Hobbs Crescent with regard to placing a TPO on the remaining trees and the yew stumps there. So, like I say, they are the oldest growing trees that we have in this country. The rootstock is still there for a 100-year-old yew tree. So, if they are included with the order, then in another 100 years, 150 years maybe, they will be something to what they were once. But they haven't died, and obviously the reason they were not TPO'd prior to the occupation of the houses is because this was always going to be retained. We did lose 2 yew trees. There used to be 4 in this locality of this the green area to the side of Highfield House, but 2 were felled via the planning process. 2 were retained to give amenity for the public right of way that is to the right, as with this green, if you like, corner of the site, because since it has been developed, it's lost 2 more mature trees via the planning. 2 large horse chestnuts have been removed, and there's another application currently in to repollard the limes in the centre. So these were retained as the green space of the development. Thank you.
Thank you, Gavin. So it's open to the committee now to discuss. Who wants to go first? Nigel Dugmore.
Hi, yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, sort of, I didn't realise that you could have a stump preservation order as well as a tree preservation order, but anyway, you live and learn.
Future amenity value.
Ah, right, okay. So, I mean, certainly the surviving trees, I'm quite happy to support those being TPO'd. But I mean, under the circumstances, I think that as the other 2 trees have already been chopped down, and they are literally just stumps, well, then it would seem a bit churlish for us to prevent the sensory garden for the son of the Mr. Wallace's son. So I mean, I'm quite happy to TPO the other 8, but not include numbers 1 and 2.
Thank you, Nigel. Councillor Jones, Janice Jones.
I've just got a question. Sorry, I was on mute. I've just got a question as to the legality of them being cut down 2 years ago. I'm not quite understanding that one.
Well, it was this year that they were cut down, and I don't. Now this is where it becomes a sticky wicket, because obviously the application was 2014, and there was a variation to the condition in 2015. So as I say in my return of my objection letter, it is debatable whether they were actually protected under planning condition prior to being cut down, because those conditions last for 5 years. So we're on the cusp, if they were, if they're not, because of how the application came in. But they would have been protected under the planning conditions for the site, because obviously the garden area was sold as the garden area for that plot at the time, and this was the green space area, if you like. So I can't comment on that one really.
So really, it looks like they shouldn't have been cut down in the first place. My concern here, and I do sympathise with the situation with the householder, is that if we let this go through, that it could form a way forward for other areas in the future, which I do have concerns about. Thank you.
Thank you. Ian Ross, you're the solicitor. What you want to comment?
Thank you, Chair. Just on a technicality, essentially referring directly to Councillor Dugmore's expression of a desire to protect, I think on the plan which is attached to Mr. Wallace's objection, all trees besides 1 and 2. I think, correct me, Councillor Dugmore, if I'm misrepresenting you, but I think you were happy for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, but not 1 and 2. Legally, you can, as a committee, confirm the tree preservation order with modifications, just to confirm that there is scope to do that. And just responding, sorry to butt in a little bit here, to Councillor Jones's comment. I'm not sure that the previous position as regards legality should distract members from focusing on the relevant criteria, which is it expedient in the interests of amenity to protect these trees? That's it from me, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Peter Scott, you've had your hand up a long time.
I have. Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, I had to wander up there this morning to have a look because although it was raining, I thought trees in the rain are lovely. I think what Councillor Dugmore is saying here is really very valid, because when these were cut down, if they'd have cut them another couple of feet lower, we wouldn't even be having this discussion now. I don't know why they cut them there, because it still left open a possibility of regrowth. But if they regrow in the same area, they'll become the same blight to the amenity as they were before. So I can't honestly see a need to protect these stumps. So I would agree with Councillor Dugmore's proposal that we preserve all the other trees, because they do act as a barrier for views and light. You know, we leave those alone, but these two would be excluded from the preservation order.
Thank you, Peter. Chris Turley.
Yes, Chair. Can I just ask people to go to page 17, which is a picture. Am I assuming the yew trees are the two stumps in the foreground, which have got ivy all over them?
I can't speak. Right? Yeah, they are. Yeah, that's correct.
Can I answer that?
Yes,
Yeah, but you can also see the regrowth there as well.
One of you, please. Gavin Onions, you're the
you can also see the regrowth from where this season's growth. So following, the roots are still there for the 100-year-old trees that they were. So this year, because they've had the main tree cut away, that all the little side shoots, it's going to take some time, but it will have amenity value. And obviously they are, you know, they can live for upwards of 1,000 years, this type of tree. So, you know, there's no reason why I don't see them becoming an asset to the street scene, if you like, public right of way in time. But because of the actions, because of they've removed the 8-9 meter top part of it, that's gone. But over time, they have started to grow back in one season.
Thank you, Gavin. Chris Turley, back to you, because you were.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Under normal circumstances, I think I would support the TPOing, but I think under health and well-being, as regards Mr. Wallace's son, etc., I think I would agree with the two trees not having a TPO, but the remainder having TPOs.
Paul Sahota.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is what I was thinking about Mr. Wallace's sons, and in future, if he wants to sort of extend this to a communal garden and for his well-being and for his health issue. I think, you know, it's not a big thing really. We'll put the order on all of them except for these two, and then let's see what happens. So I would go along with the Councillor Nigel Dugmore's suggestion that all of them except two, and let's see what happens after that.
Ian Fletcher's got his hand up. I don't know.
I'll get you round to them, Nigel. I can't see. Councillor Fletcher.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I was waiting patiently, but I would agree with the proposal with Councillor Dugmore, and I'd formally second it, that we confirm the more order in an amended state to allow preservation for trees G3 to G10 inclusive.
Yeah.
That's been moved and seconded. Is there any other comments on it?
No, Chair.
No? Can we move to a vote on that then? That we put a TPO on 3 to 10 and leave 1 and 2 out. Those are the two stumps. Okay, Ian, can you conduct the roll call?
Thank you, Chair. So as regards, we've had a proposer, we've had a seconder, as the Chair has explained. I think it's quite clear what the revised recommendation is. Please could members indicate whether they're for or against the revised recommendation. Councillor Nigel Dugmore?
For.
Councillor Ian Fletcher?
For.
Councillor Janice Jones?
Abstain.
Councillor Raj Mehta? Councillor Mehta?
Hello?
Hello, Raj.
Yeah.
You,
yeah,
please.
I'll for.
Thank you.
Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, Raj.
Thank you. Councillor Kuldip Sahota?
Yeah, for the revised proposal, yes.
Councillor Peter Scott?
Didn't hear you, Peter. You're muted.
For.
Councillor Charles Smith?
Against.
Councillor Chris Turley?
For.
The revised TPO is passed then, with one against and one abstention, and the rest for.
Yes, Chair. There's been 6 in favour of the revised amendment, 1 abstention, and 1 against.
Thank you. That's the TPO dealt with then. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Chair, if I might say something. It's Ian Ross speaking.
Ian, yes, yeah.
Just at this point in the meeting, may I be excused to leave to go to another meeting, and in my place, Solicitor Jaspreet Lyle is available to take over. And I think also, just to point out, Gavin Onions has also left. He's about to leave the meeting, I think, Gavin. Yes.
If that's what you say, Ian. Thank you very much for your time, everyone.
Just thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Chair, may I alert you that Mr. Wallace is still in the call as well?
Hello, Mr. Wallace.
Hello there.
You've heard the result of the discussions.
I have, yes.
So the tree preservation order on 3 to 10 and 1 to 2 is removed. So the stumps are not included. You're welcome to. Sorry.
Just, Mr. Chair, thank you. That's wonderful news, and thank you to the committee, the opportunity you're going to give myself, my wife, to generate that area into a lovely, neat, sensory garden area for our son. It's going to change his world. It's a really positive thing. Our next step is to now take ownership of that land, but that's a separate issue. But I'd like to thank you all very, very much.
Well, fairly. Thank you, Mr. Wallace, for attending.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Right. We need to move on to the next item, which is item.
Unknown participant is now exiting.
Yeah, okay. We know that. Item 7 on the agenda is the plan applications, and the first one we're going to do is the 2019-0806 Eden project at Canongate. Councillor Hortonwood is going to leave the meeting for this one because he's interested.
Okay, I'm going to leave now. Don't forget to bring me in when you finish.
We'll get you back, don't worry.
Okay, bye now.
Tell you tomorrow.
Right. We have a speaker again.
Okay, so this application seeks full planning permission for a residential development.
Stop you there a minute, Mark, please. We've got a speaker against this, Councillor Reynolds, Steve Reynolds, so we need to get him into the meeting.
Sure.
Yes, Chair. Just dialing him in now.
Unknown participant is now joining.
Hello, Steve.
Hello.
This is Charles Smith. We'll call you.
Oh, hello, Charles.
Just stay there a minute or two while we get the report read. Okay.
Okay then. All right, mate. Thank you.
Right, Mark. You can start.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. So this application seeks full planning permission for a residential development of previously developed land off Cannon Gates and Oaken Gates, following what would be the demolition of the existing 2-storey high building which was last used as a nightclub and function room with the adjoining sports bar and snooker centre. The application site measures approximately 0.6 hectares and is within the built-up area of Telford as defined on the Telford Wrekin local plan, and the site benefits from an extant outline permission dating back to August 2018. To the west of the site is a small industrial estate, and to the south is the built-up residential area of Oakengates. The site is raised above the A442, which runs along the east of the site, and the site is within a sustainable area in proximity to schools, shopping, and local town car parks alongside a bus and train station. The proposed development comprises 70 apartments with associated amenity space and parking. The application has been supported by a viability appraisal, which has been independently assessed and found to be appropriate in its recommendations in identifying a contribution of £25,000 towards a bicycle voucher scheme for future residents. Amended plans have been submitted throughout the course of the application in respect to the external design of the building, parking arrangements, and a bin store design. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Right. Can we call in Steve Reynolds then?
Okay. Yes. Thank you, Chair.
You've got 3 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. Right. I'm Councillor Steve Reynolds. I'm the Mayor of Oakengates on Oakengates Town Council. Whilst I support the regeneration of this brownfield site, I'm objecting against the proposed development on behalf of residents and businesses of Oakengates and Oakengates Town Council. The adverse impact of this proposed 6-storey overbearing development will be visible for some considerable distance and will permanently dominate the local landscape. The number of properties are totally excessive and an overdevelopment of the site, and the 6-storey structure will completely overwhelm the area as a local plan BE1, the design criteria. This development certainly is not in keeping with the current street scene. The number of car park spaces will not be enough space for the development of 70 properties, irrespective of the number of cycle spaces that are to be accommodated within the development. Any visitor to this development will undoubtedly park on Canongate, where there are already safety issues to other vehicle users and pedestrians. Even the Highways Department have recommended that this application should be refused in the interest of highway safety, stating that the proposed development fails to make adequate provision for the parking of vehicles within the site curtilage, resulting in an increase in the likelihood of highway danger along Canongate and parking on the public highway. Access and egress to the planned development on Canongate will continue to be a visibility issue.
You're less than a minute left there.
Sorry, owing to the existing entrance to the site, which is situated on a hill, and this will cause a bigger problem if this development goes ahead. Concerns have also been raised by the industrial units in Commercial Way, which is directly below the planned development. There will be a privacy issue by being overlooked by the development, but more importantly, the damage to these units from the groundwork that will have to be done to support such a development. And to add to these issues, there are concerns about the drainage and sewerage disposal, the additional loading of the system in respect of the additional properties, and the coal mining risk assessment, which has indicated a medium risk of shallow depth underground coal mining. And again, considering the site, the size and weight of the proposed 6-storey building, this could be unsuitable for such unstable land. Okay, thank you very much. I say that's all I've come up with, but thank you for listening to me.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Mark, do you want to come back on that?
Thank you, Chair. So a series of concerns have been raised by neighbouring residential properties alongside Oakengate's Town Council and Councillor Dave Poole, primarily in respect of overdevelopment, access arrangements, design and character. No technical objection has been received from officers within ecology, trees, public protection and coal authorities subject to appropriate conditions. The extant outline consent was granted subject to a condition outlining a number of design principles, which are outlined within the committee report. These have been broadly applied within the current proposal, albeit the overall height has exceeded that outlined within the outline principles, but that's in response to the site's viability constraints. And this is overcome as a result of its siting at a lower floor level than the adjoining highway, alongside dense landscaping to its periphery. Whilst highway officers have raised concern regarding an under-provision in on-site car parking, officers have considered the sustainable location of the site within Oakengates and its proximity to sustainable modes of transport and the council's COVID approach to promoting exercise as a positive form of well-being. And accordingly, the council has put forward for a bicycle voucher scheme in which each resident is provided with a bicycle to encourage the use of public transport in lieu of the ownership of private vehicles, and is considered to provide a unique feature for this development. Whilst noting that the comments of the Public Open Space Officer and noting the omission of affordable housing, it's acknowledged that there will be situations where a developer cannot deliver the amount of affordable housing or on-site contributions required. The applicant has provided the council with a viability report, which has been independently assessed and verified, and concluded that the £25,000 contribution is the only level of contributions that can be achieved. Whilst the proposal includes the loss of a community facility, which it's considered can no longer be operated successfully due to significant annual losses and exacerbated by the effects of the recent pandemic, this has previously been accepted and established through the 2018 Outline Planning Commission. The proposal is considered to broadly respect and respond positively to the site and the wider area, whilst taking account of the site constraints and the parameters for redevelopment, which are outlined within the outline consent. Given the existing boundary treatments and landscaping scheme proposed, the dwellings will not cause any detrimental impact upon the amenity of neighbouring properties. The recommendation therefore remains as is outlined within the committee report, namely that delegated authority be granted to the service delivery manager to grant planning permissions subject to the noted financial contributions and conditions as outlined within the committee report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mark. Over to the committee. Councillor Dugmore.
Very good, thank you, Chair. You did that before I even pressed, actually.
I can see you going to press, don't worry.
So anyway, right, first glance, I was quite happy to see this this piece of land being developed on, because I remember passing the last one. But the thing is, though, that the more I read the report, the more disappointed I actually was. I mean, the density of the development is 116 dwellings per hectare, which even for a block of flats is going something. And, you know, I mean, it's called the Eden Project. So I was wondering what type of utopia we were actually being asked to approve here. I mean, the thing is that, as has been mentioned in the report, it's too close to the A442, and therefore the only way that it can meet the noise standards is by having the windows closed. Well, you know, sort of that might be okay in the winter, although at the moment the government advice is to keep your windows open. So, and who's to say that that won't continue once this development was built, if it is indeed built. Not surprisingly, Chair, I will bring up parking. It's 40% less than it should be. So that's immediately a recipe for disaster. And then we come to the cycle scheme. Now, the cycle scheme, you know, yes, it is very, very novel, and it's it's an interesting idea. but there's not enough money put aside for it. I mean, fortunately my son isn't back from school, but I know how much bikes cost, and you're talking £200 to £300 for a bike. And if you want an e-bike, and bearing in mind that this is halfway up a hill anyway, so a lot of people probably would want e-bikes, they're over £1,000. Well, that's even if they're ordinary bikes, are about 300 quid. You're only talking about one bike per apartment. So surely there's going to be more than one person living in some of the apartments. The other thing is like the officer explained, who's going to pay after the money's spent, because obviously, sort of there doesn't seem to be any perpetuity in there. So sort of once the money's run out, you could end up any advantage of this scheme is going to be lost. Now then, on point 886.4, I noticed that the environmental health officer, the officer hasn't reported on this particular development, and we're actually relying upon the previous application's comments. Well, this is a completely different application, and very, very different from the one that was before. So, we're always told to consider each application on its own merits. So I do think that sort of particularly consultee so significant on this particular application, we haven't even had a comment from them. The whole thing, it's different size, different scale. How the heck is it going to achieve the noise standards? I can't see it happening. Even Highways objects. Now, me and Highways, I mean, we don't often see eye to eye, but even Highways agrees with me. So it must be Christmas. So, I mean, the thing is that local residents, parish council, viability people, affordable housing, healthy spaces, all these people object to it. And really, I mean, the only people that seem to support it is either the applicant and whoever wrote the report. I mean, to be perfectly honest, Chair, this, this application as it stands isn't ready to come to committee, because it should be amended. And really, if we, as it's come before us, I'm certainly going to object and refuse it on three things: overdevelopment, it doesn't conform with design standards, and the impact on the local community.
You forgot one fourth, your usual car parking.
Yes.
Councillor Fletcher.
What's the point, Chair?
Thank you, Chairman. Unfortunately, Councillor Dugmore seems to have taken all the points that I'd also extracted from the report that needed addressing before granting permission, apart from one, which I'm surprised that Councillor Dugmore missed, is the cladding on the building. Mm-hmm. In light of cladding on high-rise buildings, I can't support this at all, as well as all the points that Councillor Dugmore raised. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. Councillor Jones. You're muted, Janice. You're on mute. Janice. You're on mute, Janice.
Sorry, I keep forgetting that bit. I think most of the points I've was going to raise have already been raised. I do have concerns about parking, overdevelopment, etc. Also, the cycling thing. I know an area very well where a lot of my family live, where they've introduced this cycling, and it eliminates an awful lot of people with young children. It eliminates older people who are not very mobile. They can't benefit from any of that, the cycling. And where you haven't got parking or adequate parking, those people actually suffer. So I really am against this. I think it is total overdevelopment.
Thank you, Janice. Anybody else? No?
Did you want me to respond to those points as raised, Councillor Chair?
Yeah, just a minute, Mark. I'm just seeing if anybody else on the committee wants to come in, but no, carry on, Mark.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try to go through the points. If I miss any, then apologies. Please raise those again. I think it was kind of acknowledged with a couple of the representations that people are quite kind of keen to see development on this site come forward. I think that's kind of generally accepted and welcomed. In terms of the kind of main constraint that this site has, it is regarding quite a number of abnormal costs, which unfortunately have resulted in kind of viability issues with that. That not only kind of results in the majority of the contributions not being payable, but also regarding the density of the development that has to kind of go on the site to make the numbers stack up. And essentially what's kind of been provided and verified kind of comes out and says, well, 70 is the kind of very lowest number of units that can be achieved on that site, and alongside that, then the car parking has had to kind of take a hit in order to achieve that level and density of numbers on the site. So what the council's officers have tried to do is to explore options, taking account of the sustainable location of the site within Oakengates, and try to kind of explore new ideas and innovations, and that's taking on board as well the council's approach in respect of dealing with COVID and coming out of it, and kind of the well-being, acknowledging all the points kind of made by a number of members in respect of kind of single parent families and so on. The site does still provide a reasonable level of car parking, so it's not the case that all units wouldn't have no parking. Some would clearly have parking spaces. In respect to the cycle scheme and how that would work, so it's an initial figure of £25,000. So presumably, as part of the if we were to grant planning permission, whether it be tied into the Section 106 or through a condition, there's a requirement for a management plan to be submitted to the local authority to ensure kind of the concerns I think that you raised, Councillor Dugmore, in respect to the scheme continuing in perpetuity. So as is kind of typical with a lot of kind of leasehold properties, there's a service charge. So that would seem the most likely mechanism, that residents would pay into a service charge to a kind of sinking fund to kind of build up a pot. So where there is that rotation of occupants within those properties, there would be sufficient funds so that any new person to move into the building would be able to, and there would be a requirement under that management plan that they would kind of get a new bike. In respect of kind of the noise issues and the status of the report, so the original outline permission kind of was to establish principles for kind of the site as residential. That was accepted, albeit in an outline form. So it was accepted that a form of building on this site could be satisfactorily achieved. We can't get over the fact that there is that the site backs onto the A442. But the report did clearly outline a mitigation strategy that any development would need to accord with, and the kind of content of that mitigation strategy is proposed to be kind of conditioned so that the development would have to accord with that moving forward. It's not necessarily a kind of uncommon situation where you have that kind of relationship of windows or flats in relation to kind of main highways or indeed railway lines. So it's not an uncommon feature. You get it quite often in high density locations, but there is kind of that strategy to kind of address those concerns in respect of noise. Yes, we are in the situation where we are in COVID, and people are being encouraged to kind of have their windows open, but well, the intention is that that's not going to kind of last forever. And again, it's just not that uncommon situation where you do have these high rise developments. In respect of, I think the last point I identified, I think it was cladding from Councillor Fletcher. I presume the kind of concern here is just regarding the type of cladding, being mindful of what presumably Grenfell and the circumstances there. It's just to kind of say that any development which is implemented would need to be built to current building regulation standards, and there is and has been new legislation and requirements in respect of cladding. So development that has taken place since Grenfell, it hasn't stopped with new cladding. It's just to be more mindful of the type of cladding to ensure that it meets current requirements, so we don't find ourselves in that same situation.
Thank you, Mark. Any other comments from the committee? Councillor Turley.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm actually finding this one a bit difficult. First looking at it, I have welcome, because it is a sort of building in place we do need for one-bedroom flats, which would assist the potential of first time eventually to get their feet, and also it's somewhere I think some people would like to live rather than in an HMO. As I say, I'm finding it difficult, but I think I'm going to support, because it is something we need, and I think once it's built, all the concerns will disappear.
Any other comments? Valerie Hume.
Yes, Chair, if I may, thank you. I just really want to summarise in terms of where we've come from as a planning department, in the sense that we have a site which is in front of us, which there is this is a development site. It's a brownfield. It has got constraints that are on it. There is a previous approval on the site which approved the high-rise development. Coming forward, then we've taken the site in terms of looked at it for viability and tried to make the best of a situation that is short. Yes, it is short on car parking, only slightly though, and try to make bringing forward 40%. Sustainable active measures in terms of that transport, trying to get people out and giving it a different form of USP. It's a form of development which accommodates for a different type of party, that it's not general to terms of family accommodation, which we have a lot of, but there are other people that are out there that have different accommodation needs, and it will fulfill those. And effectively, therefore, we've come up in terms of, from a planning department side of it, taking account of the previous approval that this committee has made back in 2018 and being able to adapt that to its current situation. And officers have worked hard in trying to come up with the most appropriate situation. And that's in terms of putting forward our sort of stance in terms of how we've got to arrived at this point.
Thank you, Val. Any other comments? No? The recommendations then are before us. I need the legal officer now to conduct the voting.
Yes, thank you. Do we have a seconder for the recommendation?
I'll second, Chair. Councillor Turley seconds.
Okay. So if I go through your names one by one and indicate whether you agree with the recommendation as stated in the report, yes?
That's right, yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Councillor Nigel Dugmore.
Against.
Councillor Ian Fletcher.
Against.
Councillor Janice Jones.
Against.
Councillor Raj Mehta.
Against.
Councillor Peter Scott.
For.
Councillor Charles Smith.
For.
Councillor Chris Turley.
For.
So, Joseph.
Yes. Yes, of course. Sorry. That is 4 against and 3 in favour.
So the recommendation is not passed. We can continue the debate because we don't have any counter recommendation at this moment in time.
Do you want the reasons?
Well, yeah, we need to. If we want to refuse it, we have to officially have a motion to refuse, or we can continue the discussion as regards the application.
Thank you, Jeff. I think we need the reasons why we're turning it down.
Yeah. Overdevelopment, concerns over the design standards, and impact on the local community.
If I can just speak to the likelihood of those reasons standing up to an appeal, if you don't mind, Chair.
Just carry on, Judge. Yeah, well, you there with advice.
Yeah. Okay. Well, as your head of planning has pointed out, the application has been discussed with the applicant, and no recommendation with the report is contrary to a statutory consultee's opinion. Statutory consultees have indicated that they're happy to this subject to the conditions that are in that report. So in reality, it would be very difficult to sustain a refusal against the advice of your statutory consultee.
So which statutory consultees are in favour of it then?
Well, not in favour subject to conditions.
Because highways are against it, the affordable housing people are against it, parish council are against it, local residents are against it, local members are against it. The list is endless.
I mean, in terms of your technical advisors, have given you advice that the application is acceptable subject to conditions. Ooh. Taking into account the position as outlined by the head of planning, and you have a previous approval on this site, and the conditions are considered to be acceptable in terms of managing the issues that are raised in terms of development plan terms. So my advice is it would be difficult to sustain the objections or the reasons for refusal that you've put forth. However, that's just my advice. You're obviously entitled to take your own view on those issues. But given the stage in the application that we are, I felt it's important to outline that situation as regards to sustainability of a refusal.
So we've got no environmental officer's report. So it says that's in the report.
Okay. So, Nigel, can I bring back Valerie Hume?
Thank you, Chair. And just in terms of from the environmental health public protection comments, they're not providing comments at this moment in time, whilst officers have engaged to try and obviously get those through. However, I'm sorry, to get the comments back. However, we are taking into account what we have had previously. This is no different from the original outline consent, and there's always a technical solution. Technical solutions revolve around having appropriate glazing, trickle vents, etc. And as we've seen before, it isn't a new form of development. We have development that abuts the motorways, we have a development that abuts the A442, and therefore I would have difficulty in terms of being able to sustain an objection in relation to air and noise.
Councillor Fletcher, you've got your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. We have objections. Reasons for objections are: one, it doesn't meet the current parking standards for the that have laid down in our approved local plan. That's one formal objection. Despite of the revised super get on your bike scheme that's been agreed, that is still, the application doesn't meet that standard, a parking standard as laid down in our approved local plan. So that's one valid reason for refusing the application. Two, there is concerns about the effect on the amenity of the surrounding area. Knowing the site quite well, it's steep. It's going to overshadow not only the development on Commercial Way, but the whole town centre of Oakengates, which is one of our historic towns. And you're going to have this big block overshadowing it. So it's going to affect the amenity of Oakengates. So that's the second reason. I note the comments from the officer about the cladding. I would hope that we do have proper safe cladding on the building, but I doubt it. In my own opinion, these things, standards change and things go. So we have at least two valid reasons. And the access on that bit of road is also very bad. I didn't notice any point about the visibility display coming out of the site, which is normally part of the highways thing. I suspect it doesn't meet the visibility display standards. So there's another reason for refusing it, Chairman. Thank you.
But anyway, let it go to appeal and because we're obviously not going to agree, so let it go to appeal.
Thank you, Councillor Dugmore. Valerie,
Thanks, Chair. Just to come back in terms of just making sure that whatever reasons, if we're going down the refusal route, that they're very clear that we can uphold them, that we've got sufficient information that we can justify the refusal. Okay, so we need to take into account very clearly what we've got an approval for as an outline consent. Okay, and this is in relation to thinking through what the block was previously, which is high rise. Okay, it wasn't standard.
Was it 6 stories?
Yes, I think it was in that regard. I think I've found a screenshot in terms of within the design and access statement that you considered in 2018. I'll see if I can be able to pull it up on my screen. Right, I'll see if I can share this. Is my screen sharing?
It is.
Yeah.
And can we see this at this moment? It's not very big. Try and zoom in a little bit. But that gives you an idea in terms of what committee members have already approved, and that was the design and access statement.
And
so
how many dwellings was it?
Mark, do you know that?
It was to establish the principle of the development for residential, so the numbers of units weren't clarified, but it was within the kind of parameters that were outlined through the condition, which kind of required the overall height and the stepping form. So the proposed stepping, which is shown on the plans, kind of as part of this application as well as was in turn to reduce the visual prominence as well and to add some kind of animation to the block.
And then members, you also raised the issue in terms of the access there, which there's an exact access as existing within that site. Our highways officers have not raised an objection in terms of that location of its access as granted, as proposed to you, as well as what was granted in that original application in 2018. Okay.
Thanks, Val. I find this is rather like the Brexit negotiations.
Well, yeah, because it's all open to interpretation,
is
isn't
now
it?
exiting.
So we've decided that to refuse it. So let's move on. Let's move on to the next one.
Just a moment, Councillor Douglas. Just a moment. Are you going to chair the meeting, or shall I carry on?
It depends how long we're going to be.
Well, it depends how long you want to debate this one for. We after a couple of reasons for refusing. Now, the reason we're given for refusing, it goes to appeal. We've got to defend those reasons, or the officers have.
Well,
at the moment, it's going to be difficult because we did pass it outlined in 2018, which is 2 years ago, and here we are changing it, our recommendations almost.
Well, there's no point in having a detailed application if we're just going to rely upon the outline one, is it? Is there?
I think the officer already said, Councillor Dugmore.
Chair, can I come in, Chair, when you get a second, please?
Yes, Raj. Councillor Meta, you want to come in?
Yes, Chair. I've just been reading, go through this. Can I change my stance on this, please?
Well, it's very difficult at the moment because where we are. But
Okay.
can we just take it through properly?
That's fine.
We need proper reasons if we're going to refuse it. And it's not as though it's a unanimous refusal. In fact, it was 4-3 and one has gone and we're one down anyway. The recommendation of, now, if you want to change that, then that's going to make it 4-4. Or is it 4-3 the other way? I don't know. Do we still wish to, in view of what the officers have said and the legal advice been given, do we still want to continue with the objection and refusal of this site?
Yeah. Well, I do.
You do. Right. I'm going to propose from the chair that we take the vote again. Is there a seconder for that me moving?
Yes, seconded.
Right. All those in favour of retaking the vote?
I'm just going to go through the actual second vote now. So are we this recommendation?
No, this is to whether we in fact we retake the vote.
Okay. Fine.
And it's been moved and seconded, and I've moved it, and Peter Scott seconded that we retake the vote.
Okay. Councillor Dugmore.
Against.
Councillor Fletcher.
Against.
Councillor Jones.
Against.
Councillor Mater.
For.
Councillor Scott.
For.
Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Turley.
For.
So yeah, we've got 4-4 there with the chairman's casting vote.
In view of the recommendation of the explanation by the officers concerned, all of them, and the legal advice which was given, I propose that we retake the vote now on the recommendation. There's a seconder for that.
Do you have a seconder?
Second.
Seconded again, Peter Scott.
Okay. Councillor Dugmore.
Against.
Councillor Fletcher.
Against.
Councillor Jones.
Against.
Councillor Mater.
For.
Councillor Scott.
For.
Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Turley.
For.
Okay, Chair, that's 3 against and 4 in favour.
If it had been 4-4, I would have told you now my casting vote would have been for it, for the development as a recommendation.
Just like a South American country, this, isn't it? Keep asking the same question until you get the right answer.
No, Councillor Dugmore.
Surely don't you mean a European referendum where you keep taking it again?
This is not the Maastricht referendum in Ireland. This is our town we're talking about, and whether we do a derelict site or not. Anyway, the recommendation is through and carried, and we'll now move on.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, the next one, equally contentious probably, is the Duncow site.
What's the point of commenting on this?
0347 2020, the Duncow site in Dorley. Who's moving this one?
Sorry, I am, Chair.
Right.
Chair, we have a speaker on this item.
Yeah.
If I will dial them in now.
Thank you.
Unknown participant is now joining.
Hello, Mr. Neil Barker. Could you please pause the stream that you're watching I'm the Democratic Services Officer for the Planning Committee meeting, which you have indicated you'd like to take a part of. So thank you very much. I will hand you over to the chair now.
So do I press the mute? Do I press the mute or the pause the stream?
Just pause the stream and then stay on the call with us.
Hello, Mr. Barker. I'm Charles Smith. I chair the meeting. I'm going to get the officer to introduce the report. Then you'll get 3 minutes to have your say.
Thank you, Chair.
Karen, you introducing this one?
Yes, I am, Chair. Okay, thank you very much. So this application relates to a site located in Dorley. It's the former site of the Duncow Public House close to the Telford Langley School. The proposal relates to the development of a 77-bed care home on a site where previous consents have been granted for 72-bed care homes, which have now expired. The proposal meets the need identified in the Council's Specialist and Supported Accommodation Strategy, and it's recommended that the application be approved subject to conditions in Section 106 legal obligation. In the report, the obligation referred to two clauses, one relating to financial contributions and one relating to the type of accommodation proposed. As a verbal update, following negotiations over the last couple of days, it's actually been agreed that the type of accommodation should be secured by condition and not a clause in Section 106. And I can let you know that Section 106 has now been agreed. And so we have a public speaker, and I'll pass back over to you.
Thank you, Karen. Mr. Barker, you've got 3 minutes to address the committee.
Thank you, Chair.
Right. I'll tell you when we've got a minute left.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman and committee members, for this opportunity to represent the applicant. The main issue identified in the officer's report, recommending the approval of this multi-million-pound investment, subject to conditions under Section 106, relates...
Sorry if I'm interrupting, but Chair, we haven't let Councillor Sahota back into the meeting.
Ah.
Sorry to interrupt.
It's okay.
Has called it back in yet?
Just dialing him in now, Chair.
Sorry about this, Mr. Barker, but it's
don't worry.
It's these isolated meetings. One day we'll get back to normality.
Indeed.
Where is he? Oh. Is he not back in? Oh.
Just to confirm, Chair, I am dialing him in now, and I have been for the last couple of seconds, so just hoping he answers.
Oh, he's back in.
Okay. Am I back?
Yeah.
You're back, yeah. Call it, the report's been presented by Karen, but you've read the report. I know you have because you spoke to me about it. So I've got Mr. Barker from the public speaking to us. Mr. Barker, if you want to start again, please, for 3 minutes.
Okay, I shall start at the top. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chairman and committee members, for this opportunity to represent the applicant. The main issue identified in the officer's report, recommending the approval of this multi-million-pound investment subject to conditions under Section 106, relates to the on-site parking provision when compared to the guidance in the local plan for premises of use class C2. The similar scheme, approved in 2013, provided 17 on-site parking spaces for 72 bedrooms. This complied with the local plan parking guidance at that time. The present proposal provides 19 spaces for 77 bedrooms. We believe that the proposals do comply with policy C5, which requires that the location, quantity, and quality of car parking should reflect the nature, character and context of the development, its intended usage and relationship with the surrounding area. The site is located immediately adjacent to the local centre of Dawley and is on 2 local bus routes. Independent consultants have produced a transport statement that uses standard methodologies to calculate the impact of the development on the local infrastructure. The transport statement is supported by a workplace travel plan, which incorporates data from a recent survey of staff in the applicant's group of 65 care homes across the United Kingdom, covering travel, location and visitor arrangements. Of these homes, 75% are in similar urban settings to the Dawley site. The reports and decades of operational experience demonstrate that the proposed 19 on-site parking spaces are sufficient to meet peak demand for both staff and visitors in a sustainable way. This is detailed in the officer's report. The applicant has accepted a requirement for a workplace travel plan secured by a planning condition to ensure that the development is sustainable and compliant with the national planning policy framework, as well as the relevant policies in the Telford and Wrekin local plan. The proposed designation and registration of the premises for nursing care meets the criteria set out in the Council's Specialist and Supported Accommodation Strategy 2020 to 2025. The applicant's staffing policies and procedures remain the same as the 2013 consent, supporting local recruitment and training for part-time and full-time care posts. The areas of building, amenity space and access, and parking are finely balanced to create a viable development of appropriate scale. Increasing one of these at the expense of another would compromise the project. Finally, an additional benefit of the development is the rebuilding and repositioning of the existing retaining wall along the boundary with New Street, creating an additional length of footpath. We seek your support for the officer's recommendation so that the project may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Barker.
Hello. Now joining. Hello, Mr. Neil Barker.
Hello.
Could you please pause the stream that you're watching? You can pause you can pause the stream, please.
Aaron, do you want to come back?
Yeah, I'll just give you a bit more detail. So, as we've heard, it's a brownfield site on the edge of Dawley Local Centre. It's adjacent to the Telford Langley School, and it's the site of the former Duncow Public House, which has been demolished. The proposal is for the care home, which is identified as being required in the Council Specialist and Supported Accommodation Strategy. Scale and design are considered appropriate, and the layout of the site takes account of the protected tree on the site, and the measures are there to ensure that this is protected during the construction works. As we've heard, there's a total of 19 car parking spaces are proposed, to which the highways officer did object to, saying it didn't meet the current adopted plan standards. But the staff survey information demonstrates that there is actually a low requirement for parking on their other sites, and this site is actually in close proximity to local car parks that are free to use anyway. And the applicant has also agreed to the imposition of a condition requiring a staff travel plan. So on that basis, it's considered that on balance the proposals are acceptable and the benefits outweigh the potential shortfall in car parking spaces. As I've already said, we've now agreed the Section 106 relating to the financial contributions for sports facilities in the local area. This is to replace the bowling green that used to be on the site, and the requirement set out in the report for a clause relating to high level nursing care, that's not actually a term recognised by the CQC. So to ensure consistency and to enable the care home to be registered once it's constructed and to be able to deliver the relevant care that is identified, we've agreed a condition that the care home will be for nursing care and not residential care, and that's all been agreed. So the application's recommended for approval.
Thank you, Karen. Over to the committee. Any debate? Peter Scott.
Yeah, I don't see any issue with this particular application at all. It seems to tick a lot of boxes, and it's in an area where I think it would be very welcome, and I'm glad to see very little in the way of objection. So, quite honestly and simply, I would support this one without any problem at all.
Councillor Dugmore. Councillor Dugmore, you're on mute. Yeah, you're muted again now. Okay, Nigel.
Okay, thanks. As I say, I'm not too sure whether or not it's worth commenting on any of these applications now, but anyway, I mean, my biggest concern with this is that we've just announced a huge expansion of Langley School, and this particular application has 60% less parking than it should do, but then we never bother with standards anymore now. So I mean, that's my biggest concern, particularly at school peak times, pick up and drop off. So you've got a huge expansion of the school, you've got very, very limited car parking. My other two comments is that the ambulance bay is too far away from the entrance, particularly if it's a nursing home. Don't forget that you're going to have a lot of professional staff coming in, and they're not going to be on bikes unless, you know, sort of, we don't have call the midwife anymore, where they all ride around on bikes. They do actually use cars, not public transport. So I do think that should have been taken into consideration. I also query, why the hell would you put the bin store right at the front of the entrance? It just seems ridiculous. But anyway, as far as the actual development of the land goes, yes, I'm quite happy with that. And you know, sort of, yes, it's a much needed development, but I do think though that should have been some thought gone into the concerns over the car parking, and as I say, the ambulance bay too far away. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Hunter.
Yeah, thank you, Charles. Yes, this the Duncow, it just on the borderline between Melonsley Ward, which is mine, and the Dorley Magna. I know this place very well. It's, you know, outside our town council place. Again, you know, when I was reading it last night, you know, 72, 19 car park spaces, and the visitors come in, and the reason the developers have given us is that you know, if it's more than, you know, they have to put in more than 19, then this whole project is not viable. So, you know, the officers have agreed to that one. And then the second reason is that the developer have done this questionnaire from this place and the others, that 50% will ride by car, and 20% will walk, and 27 within 3 miles radius, and so on and so forth. I welcome this, but again, you know, I think our local plan was quite strict. I sort of gone through a couple of these planning applications before, that it should be 1 for 1 or something like that. And here, you know, the developers do sometimes come around and say, well, listen, if you don't give in, it's unviable, I'm going to walk away. You know, and this is what it's a bit of a pressure putting on the office, on our officers, really. So the first one is, you know, there should be one space for 4 bed, and then so on and so forth. 49, but we are agreeing to 19. All I'm saying is that there are some bungalows in a Deuce Drive there, and then, you know, some of these car parks might, people who come to visit their relatives, mum and dad or the granny, they might just come and park there. So we are deviating from our policies. If all I want the officers to say, is this what we're allowing here is in our local Telford Wrekin plan with regards to the parking spaces. If that is so, then I love to have this care home in there. It is needed and for everyone. But my slight concern is there that we are sort of allowing this. It's not viable. Okay, we'll accept it. Then the car. If you another point I wanted to make is I'm sure the developers always do their own little homework and say, well, this is the reason for fewer car parking. The questionnaires which was done by the developers. Do we give a much credence to that one? Do we accept it? If all these points I want to make, I love to have it. I will vote for it, but these are my concern, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Gauntlet. Knowing the site very well, there's a car park 50 yards from the front of the building, and there's another car park 150 yards away, which is a large one if people want to go there. We have to remember this is nursing care, not residential care, and there's a difference for the car parking spaces. The other points probably may be valid, but we do need this facility. And what would be even better is to rebuild the wall where the old bowling green used to come to the edge of the road and have a footpath down that hill. It's quite a dangerous hill if you're not footpath both sides. So it would be very useful.
Okay, thank you for that explanation, Mr. Chairman.
Can I call in the solicitor to give us some advice? Jazz.
Yeah. So you've got the application in front of you, and I think obviously it's distinguished from between nursing care and residential care, and in the circumstances it will be conditioned such that it's not a it's a nursing care rather than residential. You have evidence that facilities of this kind do not draw the parking issues that the residential care facilities would tend to draw, and as such, it's a material consideration that you can weigh in the balance as respects the application generally, and it's something you can validly rely on in terms of determining whether to agree the recommendation.
Thank you, Jazz. Any other comments from the committee? Nigel, you've still got your hand up, Nigel. Okay. The recommendation before us, there's no other comments. Somebody move the recommendations?
Move it, Chair.
The seconder?
So, Chair, I
was trying to say he's seconded.
I'll second it if nobody does it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Peter Scott was seconded. So can I ask the solicitor then to do the roll call?
Councillor Dugmore.
For.
Councillor Fletcher.
For.
Councillor Jones.
For.
Councillor Mehta.
For.
Councillor Sahota.
For.
Councillor Scott.
For.
Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Turley.
For.
I think that's unanimous. The recommendation is through. We'll allow that development. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. This one's not going to be so easy though. 7C, this is the development of Hortonwood. That's 2020-0680.
Unknown participant is now exiting.
69. We've got two speakers for this one.
Yes, Chairman. I'm going to dial them in now.
This is Hadley and Lee Gomery
Participant
Parish
is now
Council.
joining.
Please leave a message after the tone.
Unknown participant is now exiting.
Mr. Chairman, I'll try Mr. Butler next, and then come back to Mr. Brumwell, if that's acceptable.
Yes, please.
Hello.
Unknown participant is now joining.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Butler. Welcome to
It
the
is.
planning. Yes, that is Mr. Butler, correct?
Yes.
Brilliant, brilliant. My name's Joseph. I'm the Democratic Services Officer at Telford Wrekin Council for the planning committee that is happening today. You've indicated
Right.
you'd like to speak on item TWC 2020-0680.
Yes.
That's correct. Brilliant.
Right.
If I could ask you just to wait there 1 second while I dial in another speaker.
Right. How long will you be, if you don't mind me asking? Hello.
Hello, Mr. Butler. I'm Charles. I'm the chairman of the committee.
Yes.
What the procedure is, we need to get John Brumwell in because he's the parish council clerk, and we need
Yes.
then the planning officer will outline the report, and you'll get your 3
Right.
minutes then to speak. So there'll be a few minutes yet, but not that long.
Right. Okay. Then the only reason I'm asking is that I have been, waiting since 2 o'clock. I am at home. I was going out, but I haven't. But I think the thing for me to do is to go upstairs because this is a very poor reception area, and you may or may not hear me clearly. I don't know.
We're hearing you very clearly at the moment.
You are. Well, I can
Very
stay
clear.
where I am.
Yeah.
I'll stay where I am then.
I'm sorry for the delay, but we've had a very long agenda, a bit contentious, some of it. So
Yes.
we're sat here on the committee. We're
Right.
stuck with it as well. So we won't be very long.
No. Okay then. Thank you.
Sorry, Joseph. Can you?
I'll try.
Okay, Mr. Butler, we'll call you back in a minute.
Do you want me to turn the phone back off again? Do you?
No, stay there. Just stay with it open.
Okay then. Okay.
We're hearing you now.
Right. Okay. That's fine.
Just dialing Mr. Brumwell in now, Chair.
Okay.
Unknown participant is now
Hello?
joining.
Hello,
Hello?
Mr. Brumwell.
Yes.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Thank you very much. I'm Joseph. I'm calling from Telford Wrekin Council, Democratic Services Officer for the Planning Committee, which you've indicated you'd like to speak in on item TWC 2020-0680. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, brilliant. Chair, over to you.
Hello, John. I'm the Charles Smith on the chair. We've met before.
We have, yes.
Right. You know the procedure. We get the officer to bring in. Then I'm going to ask Mr. Butler to go first. If we wait till 2 o'clock.
Okay.
Who's the officer representing the report?
It's myself, Chair.
Is it?
Ian Lowe, if you can see me.
Oh yes, I can see you, Ian. Yes. No. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Right, let's get this as brief as possible. This application seeks outline planning consent for the erection of a single employment unit, use classes B2 and B8 up to 14,930 square metres. The outline application seeks consent for the principle of development and access only, with all other matters including scale, design, layout and landscaping reserved for later consideration. An indicative layout has been provided in order to demonstrate that such a scheme would be suitable on the site and includes parking for 255 vehicles and space for up to 29 HGVs. Access would be via an existing access to the safe of the site, which would be improved as part of the development. The application is subject to a strategic highway contribution, contributions to pedestrian cycle route improvements relating to the development, and a contribution towards the monitoring of a travel plan. These are similar to contributions that were put forward on a previous extant consent on this site. Officer's recommendation is to approve, subject to conditions, informatives, and the Section 106 agreement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Butler, would you like to address the committee for 3 minutes?
I certainly would, thank you.
You've got 3 minutes from now then.
Okay, then, lovely, thank you. Well, I have sent in 2 letters about this application, the 8th of the 9th and the 30th of the 9th, and my objections are pretty much the same as what they were. There are some things that are just, I can't really understand the need for this application, why we need to have such a big warehouse behind us, especially as, you know, there are factories that are on a Hortonwood that are empty anyway. And the other point is the thing is that the road could be put the other side of wrap film, and because if they couldn't use it, if it doesn't belong to them, surely it could be leased or sequestered off them anyway. Thus taking a busy or noisy road away from us. My concern is the height of the building and the size of the building. My other concerns are the amount of car parking. Why is it that it needs to be filled in the northeast corner of the car park that exists and infilled, and then we're going to have 212 car parking spaces touching us? The noise from it is going to be deafening, because they've already okayed across the road from where I live a building that's going to be open, thankfully not 24 hours 7. We certainly don't want that. And the other point is that the wildlife is being driven into our area, onto our land, and not that I've got a problem with wildlife as such, but you know, dog foxes as big as Alsatians are rather difficult to deal with, and that's in the daytime.
Mr. Butler.
Sorry?
You've got 1 minute to go.
Oh, okay, thank you. The other point is displacement of the land. The water table rises. It always rises when they build these properties. Behind us is already boggy, and when it's wet and everything, and that's on our land. The other point about it is, certainly for me, I would want double glazing out of this because of the noise, and also I would want the covenant removed, which is due to run out until 2034. And apart from that, I don't think that all this noise either side of us is going to do the mentality, especially during the pandemic, residents much good. Anyway, that's as much as I can fit into the 3 minutes. There is obviously more, but that is it.
Thank you, Mr. Butler.
All right, then I can leave now, or can I still listen?
You can still listen to us if you want, or we can leave. It's up to you.
Yeah, I'll still listen. When will I know the result?
About 5 minutes.
Well, we'll know the result later on today when we finish the debate.
All right then. Well, in which case then I will wait and hear, but I will go in about 5 minutes' time. So if you then text me and let me know, because this phone will take text.
Thank you, Mr. Butler.
No, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah. John Bromwell, you've got 3 minutes. You want to address us?
Okay. Thank you very much for the opportunity to actually speak. Now, sorry, somebody's just arrived at the door. I'm home today. The parish council's main concerns are to do with the scale and form and massing of the building, because it's 50% larger than the buildings that were previously consented. The other concerns are the hours of operation, because the previous consent had a restriction on the hours of operation, but the current application doesn't mention any hours of operation or any restriction. And I noticed that the recommendation also doesn't say that it should be subject to a condition on hours of operation. There is a third concern, and that is the volume of traffic and the impact of that on Horton Lane. Now, it should be noted that none of the transport assessments for any developments on Hortonwood since the MOD fulfilment centre transport assessment, no transport assessment has actually ever mentioned Horton Lane. And that's despite the fact that we currently have the latest figures are 1,445 vehicle movements a day during the week at Horton Lane, and that's an increase of 700 over the previous traffic survey. Now, there is obviously an experimental traffic regulation order that's about to come into effect there, but that is only for a period of 18 months. And there are 5 other sites that have been consented immediately in the vicinity of Horton Lane, with a total of about 1,200 parking spaces. So although there is the experimental TRO, that is only for 18 months. And so this is a live issue which needs to be considered. Now, very quickly, that issue is not a live issue because of the experimental TRO. However, the design features, okay, so the main concern is the foreman massing and the hours of work, but also the mitigation. Now, the car park is on the eastern side. It's a car park for 225 vehicles. There is an earthen feature which is going to be built there to try and actually reduce the visual impact. And there is a 6-foot earth barrier and a 6-foot acoustic barrier. But bizarrely, the acoustic barrier on the plans is shown as being in a ditch behind the earthen barrier. Whereas on the northern side, it's a 3-metre barrier with a 3-metre acoustic barrier with the acoustic barrier on top of the earthen feature. So we're asking that there should be low-level lighting to reduce the amount of light pollution from the car parking area, and also that the acoustic barrier and mitigation should go on top of any earth bank that's built there, so that also reduces light and noise coming from the car park and vehicle movements.
Okay, thank you, John. The officer want to come back?
Thank you, Chair. So members will be aware that there are 2 extant consents for development on this site. Firstly, an application approved under the New Towns Act 1995 for the erection of a manufacturing and warehouse facility on this site. The second and more recent is a full planning consent considered and approved by Planning Committee in March 2018 for the erection of 7 industrial buildings with a mixture of B1, B2 and B8 units. The site is an allocated employment site within the Telford Wrekin local plan, with the use of the site preferred for B2 and B8 uses as proposed. Officers note the concerns of the height of the proposed development. This remains a reserved matter that would be considered under a separate application. However, in order to define the permission, the maximum height of development would be restricted to a maximum of 14.5 metres, and officers, of course, guide the applicant to ensure that the impact upon the nearest residential properties is acceptable in respect of that. In terms of hours of operation, those points are noted. Again, I think this is something that should be left for reserved matters application when we have a better appreciation of who the end user and the type of use that will be carried out on the site, and then we'll condition it appropriately, again ensuring that the impact upon nearby residents is considered. And the same for lighting, trees, boundary treatment. Those are all matters that can come forward part of landscaping scheme with that reserved matters application. So given the status of the application as outline consent, that is compliant with policies contained within the development plan, and the applicant has demonstrated the site can be accessed and suitably drained. Officer's recommendation is that delegated authority is granted to the Development Management Service Delivery Manager to grant outline permission subject to appropriate conditions, informatives and a Section 106 agreement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ian. Out for the committee now. Nigel Dugmore.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, sort of an industrial unit being proposed to be built in an industrial estate. It's a bit of a no-brainer, really, isn't it? Quite honestly. I mean, the distance from the dwellings, I can understand the residents' concerns over it, but I'll tell you something. Most of the people that live on that road are in relatively new properties, and there are very few older properties along there, and they would have been well aware as to the encroachment or the as Hortonwood expanded when they either bought or built the properties. But the distances to the nearest dwellings are 70 metres in one direction and 107 metres in the other direction. So I don't think sort of well, they were well aware when they got the properties. So really, I mean, sort of, we need to be supporting businesses. I would suggest though that instead of contributions to cycle and pedestrian ways, it'd be far better to actually make a contribution and have a bus service onto Hortonwood, because there isn't one, and that would help with the carbon footprint. Now, as was mentioned, the last application on this site was for several units, but this looks to be quite a large one. The clerk to the parish mentioned about traffic assessments, but don't forget though that the traffic on Hortonwood has been skewed quite a lot by the pandemic procedures for the recycling centre, as well as the increased business with the food processing plants down there. The other point was made about light pollution, and quite honestly, well, LED lights, as we all see, street lamps, they don't spread out very well and will actually reduce the light pollution quite significantly by that. So quite honestly, Chair, I can't see a problem with this application at all. I'm quite happy to support it.
Thank you, Nigel. Peter Scott.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, again, Councillor Dugmore beats me to the drawing in many ways. Yeah, I'm not surprised that there's an industrial unit being proposed on an industrial estate. It's pretty much what you'd expect. And I think a lot of the objections I've heard from the speakers previously can be addressed through reserve matters. So I think we should let this go forward and let the applicants deal with any such issues later.
Any other comments from the committee? Councillor Souter?
Yeah, well, I put my hand up, Charles, just to move the recommendation, really. I got no comments. I'm quite happy with all the in the recommendation, all the conditions that are attached to it, and to let it go, really.
I'll second it.
That it's moved and seconded. The recommendation is.
Okay, so we've got.
Judge,
we've got a motion with the seconder, so let's vote on it. Councillor Dugmore.
Move, and Councillor Dugmore seconded.
Yeah. Councillor Fletcher.
Vote.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. Okay, let me start the vote again, sorry. Councillor Dugmore.
Still 4.
Councillor Fletcher.
4.
Councillor Jones.
4.
Councillor Motor.
4.
Councillor Sahota.
4.
Councillor Scott.
4.
Councillor Smith.
4.
Councillor Turley.
4.
That is unanimous. The recommendation goes through and the development is allowed. Thank you. Let's somebody let Mr. Butler know.
I can hear.
Oh, Mr. Butler, thank you.
Well, the only thing that I would say, just as an addendum, I've lived here 33 years, and I didn't know anything about the previous application until 2018, and then this one I didn't know anything about until August. And I couldn't approach anybody because of the pandemic. Anyway, I will leave it with you. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you, Mr. Butler.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, Unknown participant is now exiting. Unknown participant is now exiting.
Right. We now move on to the Cheshire Cheese one on page 97, and we have a speaker for that one as well.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I will dial them in now.
Hello, Paul.
Unknown participant is now joining.
Hello, Paul.
Hello, Mr. Harris. Thank you for joining us. I'm Joseph Galkowski from Telford Wrekin Council, dialing you in for the Planning Committee. You've indicated you'd like to speak on the application TWC 2020 0696. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I'll hand you over to the chair.
Hello, Mr. Harris.
Good afternoon.
Chancellor Smith here, Charles Smith. I chair the meeting. We'll have to ask the officer to give the report, and then you'll have your 3 minutes to address the committee.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Right. Can the officer who's moving?
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's myself again.
Oh, you're stuck with it again.
I'm stuck, yeah. Leave me to last. Right, so this application seeks the demolition of the former Cheshire Cheese public house and for the erection of 10 dwellings with associated parking and access infrastructure. The application has been submitted following a previously refused application. The application site is located in the Dorley Hamlets area of Telford, utilising an existing access to the pub car park off Doseley Road. Each dwelling would provide 2 bedrooms, with 7 of the properties also providing a small study nursery room. All properties comply with the nationally described space standards. 2 parking spaces are provided for each dwelling, with 20 spaces in total. The application is subject to financial contributions towards education and recreation, and officer's recommendation is to approve subject to conditions in that 106 agreement.
Thank you, Ian. Hello, Paul. Mr. Hunt.
Hi.
Would you like to address the committee now for 3 minutes?
Okay. Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon. The application, as the case officer has mentioned, that's being presented to you this afternoon, follows a previous application which was refused at the end of last year and has basically been a subsequent of extensive discussions and negotiations with both planning and heritage officers to eventually arrive at this latest scheme. From those discussions and responses received during the planning process, it was apparent that there are 2 main issues of contention. Firstly, the loss of the pub as a potential community asset, and secondly, the loss of the pub as a heritage asset. The public house has, like a number of similar establishments across the country, been in decline for a number of years due to the changes in the general public's social and drinking habits. The marketing report commissioned to satisfy your policy COM1 of the local plan shows that the barrelage consumed at the premises has more than halved in a 5-year period since 2014. Like many public houses, this has resulted in the brewery taking the decision to close its doors once it was unable to find any suitable tenants to continue to run the pub as a going concern. And the site was subsequently marketed to see if any interest could be generated to potentially use the building for an alternative use. Again, as can be seen from the marketing report, very little interest was forthcoming and no bids received for an alternative reuse. With this evidence in mind, it can be demonstrated that there is a lack of need for the premises as a community facility. Furthermore, a number of pubs exist within a 1 to 1.5 mile radius of the site, which provides for alternative provision, all supporting the fact that the application meets policy COM1. Members are no doubt aware that the premises have also been the subject of a couple of arson attacks recently, which have affected the structural integrity of the building to such an extent that the building is now unsafe, to the point where demolition is the only safe option. However, as the case officer points out, this should not have any bearing on the principle of residential development on the site or the principle surrounding the loss of the public house provision. The report goes on to say that even if the public house remained without such damage, it will be difficult to resist its demolition and replacement given that the benefits of the 10 new dwellings which are of suitable design there balance its loss. The pub itself is classified as a non-designated heritage asset, which is stated by the case officer means, whilst it has no statutory protection, in accordance with Power 197 of the NPPF, the effect of the application on the loss of such an asset should be taken into account, and a balanced judgment will be required with regard to the scale of any harm or loss. The building is not on the council's local list either. There are no policies within the local plan which requires the retention of non-designated heritage assets or their reuse within the proposed scheme, and so this must be taken into consideration when considering the overall planning balance. It's clear that the loss of the building will change the character of the built area in this location, but one must also consider that in order to make any residential scheme viable, additional residential development would also be required, which would significantly alter the built landscape and the relationship between the public house and the listed building. The built landscape would also be further altered once the 13 houses which have approval on the adjoining land to the south are also constructed. As mentioned at the start, we've worked with the LPA through pre-application advice to overcome previous reasons for refusal. This has included issues relating to the impact on the existing heritage assets. This has resulted in the current plans that include creating an attractive terrace based on a historic workers' cottage concept to the front of the site, giving connection to and respecting the area's industrial paths. In addition, where the existing building would be... Sorry?
Can you wind up now, please?
Yep. Where the existing buildings would be demolished and rendered semi-detached pair houses are proposed, which have sought to take design inspiration from the existing building. As can be seen from the officer's report, they consider the result the development would prove an attractive, well thought out design that will not be out of character with the visual appearance of the area or the existing building on the site, whilst also ensuring that the setting of the Grade 2 listed building is not harmed. We would therefore request that you support the officer's recommendation and grant approval to the scheme before you.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Ian, do you want to come back?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think the agent there has probably run through most of the things I was going to mention anyway. I think it's, I think he's done a good job with sort of pointing out the main facts of the application. And I'm also aware of time, and I think you mentioned that one of the councillors was due to sort of depart in 10-15 minutes. So just to sum that up very quickly, from my point of view, the applicant has overcome all the reasons for refusal on the previous application. Some of the objections that have been raised are relating to highways matters and highway safety issues. There are no objections from the highways officer on this application, nor has there been on the previous application or on an application that sits immediately adjacent to this site, which uses that same access. So my advice to members would not to refuse the application on any highways grounds. The scheme itself is a well thought out scheme. It's listened to officers in terms of the design, the impact on the street scene, and particularly the impact of the development on the setting of the Grade 2 listed bridge that sits opposite the site. When you compare that to the previous scheme, it's a significant improvement. And as I say, it takes the comments from officers and from the heritage officer into account. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Ian. Councillor Sahota, you want to come in?
Yes, I see that it's been green carded by Councillor Greenaway. Shouldn't she be here to put a case, or isn't that not allowed, or what? I thought she would be here to say, you know, why she's green carding it, Mr. Chairman.
That's been taken into account, so we can't force them to come. But Paul,
yeah. All right, then.
You will know the councillor can't green card, but don't have to turn up.
She doesn't have to. No. Well, tell you what, I was just looking at the list of objections from Councillor Hopkins and the others. The loss of public houses, because of course, some of the public houses disappeared in my ward and the other places, and I always feel bad about them. But the thing is, if they're not used, then of course, the people who own these properties, they have to sort of take some other, other action. So the other thing is, it's not heritage asset, is it? It's not listed too or anything.
No,
we can't sort of go on that way because, again, one of these Councillor Hopkins says it's a heritage asset. So we can't do anything about that. Okay, those are my 2 points. If you don't use it, you lose it, I'm afraid. And, it happened a couple of times in my life. So, other than that, I got no comments, Mr. Chairman.
Any other comments from the committee? No? I mean, bearing in mind that the building is now dangerous following 2 fire attacks on it, it's going to be a derelict site very quickly. Councillor Dugmore, you were trying to say something. You're muted.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, yeah, the building's in such a parlous state that really the site just needs tidying up. So, as a pub visitor myself, I sort of always mourn the loss of hostelries. But anyway, I mean, I don't think there's any other there's nothing else can be done with the site, so it needs sorting.
I knew we had something in common. We're both pub goers. Councillor Houghton, you've got your hand up again.
Yeah, just my final comments before I move the recommendations, everything. I think the local school, the secondary school, and the education. 30,738, recreation 650. So I think, they're getting a good deal out of this, and I would, for that, I would move the recommendation with all the conditions attached to it, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second for the recommendation?
I'll second, Chair.
Okay, can we take the roll call then?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Councillor Dugmore.
For.
Councillor Fletcher.
For.
Councillor Jones.
For.
Councillor Mota.
I want to abstain. I'm not fully happy.
Okay. Councillor Sahota.
For.
Councillor Scott.
For.
Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Turley.
For.
Okay, Chair, that's 7 in favour and 1 abstention.
Thank you very much. That recommendation goes through then, and we allow the development. And that brings us to the end of a long meeting. One of the longest I've ever done, that is. 2 hours.
Unknown participant is now exiting.
Well, if anybody proposes a supermarket in Newport, then you'll see a long meeting.
Yeah.
Steady.
Where is that going to be, Nigel?
Oh, I'm not getting into that again.
Is that your proposal, Nigel?
No, it's not.
Chair, we are still in.
Reserve the high street, don't we, Peter?
We certainly do.
We are still in a public meeting, Chair.
Okay, we'll thank you all for attending, and can I wish you all, don't see you before, the confidence of the season, and let's go have a good one and a safe one.
Same to you, Chair.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everybody, and a Happy New Year. God bless.
Okay, bye now.
Stay safe.
Bye.